What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Review here on the PLD Projects Network. I'm your host, PLD, and I have a little bit of a smile on my face, but my co-host does not. I'm not sure why, because this was such a great episode. I can't say that. I can't say that. I can't say that. We'll get into it. I am with Lego as always. Lego, how are you today? Besides the fact that I forced you to watch this today.
You know, I'm coming off the highs of a really great musical festival and the lows of having a home in Georgia after the hurricane hit and worry over that. So, you know, kind of extremes. And then you made me watch this, PLD.
At least you could channel your anger, channel your negative emotions away from anything else going on. You could channel it towards something else. That's why I did it. I did it for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're good at that. You know who isn't good at that? Ooh. The spin, the characters in this show, and the writers who wrote them. Not good at spin. These are supposed to be undercover agents, all of them. And they can't lie.
That's true. There's some problems here. All right, I will say, I'm going to give us an overall shout out first. I will say last week we said that was probably low bar, but it was probably the best episode. It was technically competent. It had some moments. It still didn't make a lot of sense in some areas. We got it, but we had some common things to say. I was very curious as to what I was going to enter here with you today, because I actually found this episode to be on a similar level as last week in terms of, I think it was pretty well directed overall, comparatively to some of the other not so great editing, directing slots we had. This was directed by Jonathan Frakes, of course, Will Riker of Star Trek fame. I enjoyed, there's some definite positives from this week, and we'll get into it in the nitty gritty, but I will say I enjoyed a lot of the performances, the actual performances this week, which was never really an issue in it. We do have good actors and everything else. I actually liked some of the directions they were going. My major problem still always is the sunk cost we have of not having earned some of these directions. We've said it before, like, for example, we still don't know what the visitors are doing here. We had ample opportunity this week to get more of an explanation, and we still got nothing. So I try to put that aside when I'm judging this episode, because I hate to judge this episode based on the directions so far. I try to take a look at it.
Necessarily think that's possible for me anyway, when we have a show that is episodic like this, and it's telling one long narrative story, how it fits into the narrative is essential.
I don't disagree as far as the overall show goes, but I look at this, I kind of feel like we are already so far into this now at this point, 7 episodes in, where like we're not thrilled with anything that's happened before. So I can only take each episode for what it is and try to look at it that way. And maybe it's because I'm trying to like it. I could be trying to like it. That could be absolutely be me. I still do have a lot of problems with it. So I'm not saying this is a great episode. I'm not even saying it's a really good episode. But I am more positive on it than you are. Did you have any positives about it? I'm kind of curious. Did you have any positives on it?
I'm pretty sure they paid people, so they got work, and that's nice. I do love that. Let people earn a living.
Okay. Well, there you go. I guess we're gonna get nitty-gritty from there.
I'm really working hard to find a positive and really not getting one. I wish I could, and that's I don't look down on anyone who does like this show. I wish I did too. I don't.
Of course,
I think it is just the kind of laziest writing and some of the worst editing. The action scenes are deplorably done. Like, wow, that's bad. I mean, the acting I think is fine, but the direction is incompetent. So the acting is not making up for that, unfortunately, for me. And I know these are things I've just said over and over, but it's not, once again, it's not improved. So I have really nothing else to really say. And as it pertains,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
as it pertains like the episodic nature, like clearly they're trying to tell a story with a mystery. I think I'm actually not even sure if that's what they're trying to do. I don't know. But I think it's trying to be a mystery.
I
And
think
each
so too.
episode should kind of how I see mystery. Each episode it should be like a staircase. Each episode should, take you up a step, building towards the resolution of the mystery. And we're on a broken escalator.
Yeah.
We ain't
That's
doing
a fair point.
nothing. We're on an elliptical. We're going nowhere.
I
It's
will say I
snowing.
don't disagree with anything you've said. I do, although I mean, we've noticed in our time together that you are very technical when it comes to direction, more aspect than I am. I definitely go for more performances, and I don't notice as much negative as you do. And it's not even a negative thing. I don't think you're not negative, but you have a more of
The
an
thing
in-depth
I
look into
don't
things.
necessarily know if that's true because I feel like I can get really wrapped up in a good performance.
Mm.
Like, girl, I watched 14 seasons of Degrassi. Like, I can get wrapped up in a performance. I love soap operas. It don't have
Right,
to be good.
right.
I
That's
definitely get
fair.
wrapped up in a performance. But for me, it definitely comes down to writing. If the writing
Yeah.
isn't there, I'm not there.
That's a fair point. Because you mentioned the incompetence of the direction, and I didn't think it was too incompetent. I will say there was one specific thing we'll get to that I really hated and thought was really incompetent. But for the most part, I thought the direction was not awful. I didn't think it was awful, but I'm sure you can point out some things that maybe I didn't notice, and that's where we'll get into things. But let's get it. Let's start doing the deep dive that into it. Obviously, this episode John May is this is the big reveal. We learned about John May lives. We learned that John May was this big figurehead. We didn't know much about him. It was just the message they were using, and we find out. We actually at least get a reveal of who he is, which is I'll give it the absolute barest of credits and that we actually got an answer on something, who John May was to a degree. We got at least an idea of
Okay.
who he was.
I have a question though.
Okay.
'Cause I feel like maybe I lost my damn mind. I
Okay.
plumb forgot something. I
Okay.
misremembered. Okay.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
am gaslighting myself here. As it pertains to Ryan's character, not Ray. His name is Ryan. I forgot a
Yes.
letter. It's fine. Ryan's character. um,
That's right.
I did. Do you think the writers knew? Because it seemed like he didn't know John May's fate. I feel like I did not get the idea that he knew John May's fate, which we learned in this episode. He very much knew exactly John May's fate.
I would absolutely agree with that. I think that was. I think the idea was they decided this week when they wrote this episode, they decided to make it that he was being vague because he didn't want to admit what had happened, and I was okay with that.
I am not. But
And that's fine, and that's fine.
ugh,
Although
no.
I remember watching this the first time, and I don't know if it was this episode or if it was episodes to come, where I kind of feel like nobody did he really get killed, or is Ryan just saying that at this point? So maybe that might be something for come. Maybe
You
like he's
know,
saying he killed him because that's what he was supposed to do, but
yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say I kind of agree with you because I've seen a TV show before, and generally speaking, in a sci-fi show, no body, they're not actually dead, or if we didn't see it fully
right.
happen, like in flashbacks, and we did have flashbacks in this episode, then probably not dead. However, if that ends up being the case, I'm gonna be so fucking mad. Because like it doesn't make any sense for Ryan at first to go on this whole MacGuffin hunt for the little blue orb that is a microphone. That whole thing is when even on a sci-fi show, when even your fake technology isn't cool, what are you
Yeah.
even doing? What are you
Oh,
even
it was very lame. I will give you that. I thought like this is a communicator. It's a marble, basically.
so dumb? And
Yeah.
also, anybody walking past could hear you.
Yes, that was the other thing I think. I
That
thought it
was
was
the
like,
big problem for me.
was it?
But
I actually thought it was like would have been cooler if like at least not that much cooler, but if you're holding it, you just heard it in your head or something to that effect with some kind of like
something.
But obviously it wasn't, because we know that that's not the case.
Yeah. But like when we look at all of the things Ryan was doing up until this point, it absolutely does not make any sense for him to know what we learned that he knows about John May, that he is dead, that he killed him.
Right.
And that reveal was so dumb. So can I do like a writing lesson 101?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay. So you've already written something and it's something you can't go back and change. Like that part has been like published, it's been put out, it's in stone. Okay, that's canon. So let's say, you're writing something out and you're like, but what's already been made canon, I don't really like. Kind of too bad. Work with your canon and establish it, or go through a long road of making it make sense. Don't just like forget that. Let's do this now, because that's gonna like throw your audience.
I agree with that. I think that you have to at least find a way to make it work. You have to at least find a way to make it work. Even if you say something like he lost his memory about it for somehow, or he didn't know what happened, or he kind of came back to him to the journey or something, or whatever.
John May actually lived.
Right. And that would make sense. That'd be actually be part of the thing. John May lives. He actually lives.
Like he's just not there. He disappeared.
Right. Which is why I thought it would be better.
Keep building his mythos. Like a Western guy. I'm not good with Westerns, but you know how the Western guy who's come to town and there's a whole big legend around him.
Right.
That should be what John May is.
And he should, and yes, that actually that would have been a smart thing to do, because they do say he's dead. I do wonder if that's the case. If they kind of leave it open, I feel like they almost did leave it open on purpose. Because if they did leave it open, that'd actually be kind of a cool thing to develop it. Because this time around, when I first saw the show, I remember going, John May, who cares about this guy? Who cares about this guy? But I kind of like the idea of him being the first visitor who got human emotions. Don't get me started on the fucking human skin thing. I don't like. That I admit, I will throw that aside. I will just throw that one right to the dogs. The idea that the human skin, you're wearing a human skin too long and that does it, that sounds like bullshit, because that's not even like fun sci-fi. Sci-fi people are generally somewhat forgiving if you give them sci-fi babble. Give them enough to go with and you're kind of okay, all right, it's a futuristic technology, yada yada, fine. But this human skins gives you human emotions. Yeah, that just is stupid. It is stupid. I'd much rather prefer them being affected by humans. That would actually make me okay with that if they were just normally a cold, calculating species, or whatever. And like Spock,
I still hate that.
I don't love it either. But if you establish the canon that they're whatever, they're becoming more affected by being sleeper agents, like going native, so to speak. That's kind of a thing you can go with, and I could get behind at least enough to continue the storyline with it. So I like the idea that he's this first person. It becomes kind of because he was the first person to turn, that's kind of an inspiration to other visitors who are starting to feel emotions too. I like that. Again, that's why you should have him live. John May should have gotten away at the end, so that John May is potentially still out there, and you could have an episode in the future where the Resistance go to him, and he could be like this, like Resistance leader kind of thing, or the beacon of light.
Done better.
Where's that?
Finn in the sequel trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And they should have elaborated on that so much more. That I feel like was their biggest missed opportunity.
Yes, I agree with that. And hopefully that could be still undone eventually, if we go further, if Finn is going to come back, which is
animation at bare minimum.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They still could do that.
Like John Boyega, he doesn't have a unique voice.
No, it's true. That's true. So I did like the idea behind it, but I do think they do fumble it overall. I like Michael Trucco. I think he's a good performer. I think he did his job well. I actually liked Morris Chestnut's performance as old, emotionless visitor. I actually liked that performance. Oh, you didn't? I'm saying.
Okay. I mean, it's fine. I didn't notice that much of a difference. I didn't even realize it was a flashback at first.
Oh, I see. I completely did notice a difference. I thought the performance was very subtle.
Very loud concert. I was doing my best.
That's fine.
The cheerings were coming in at very funny moments, though. So thank goodness for whoever was performing.
Right.
But his character is really grating on me because he's just so stupid, and the lack of communication between the good guys at this point is just
Stupid.
bad writing to me.
No.
Like, there's no reason. I still don't know what the visitors are doing there.
Right.
Like, I still don't know why they're bad guys. Like, I can't remember, did they even do anything bad other than the day they arrived? And maybe something to do with the flu shot, but we
Right.
don't actually know what it was doing exactly.
Right.
Like, there's all this like sinister stuff that's only sinister because the main characters are telling us it's bad, but we don't actually know what the bad thing is doing and what their
Right.
main intent is, and it's annoying me so
It is annoying me as well. I will tell you, I didn't like. I think when I first watched this, I didn't realize how much they weren't telling me because it's an IP. Because I was used to,
yeah.
I was like, okay, it's the old guys, the visitors, the bad guys, resistance to the good guys, and I was kind of already programmed into that. But when I look at it more critically this time around, I understand what we're saying because I'm like, I don't know what they're doing at all. The only reason we know they're bad guys is because they tell us they're bad, and that there's music that says they're bad, and Anna acts sinister and emotionless, etc. They gave a little hint towards something where she said she needed the bodies on the ship. So they need human bodies for something potentially, which I was like, okay, I was like a little dog begging for scraps. I'm like, they gave us something. I don't know what it is, but it's at least something more than what they had given us in the first 6 episodes or whatever. And if they would just shit right off the pot and tell us what it is,
Yeah.
I think so much would be helpful.
And additionally, because of the lack of like actual like for me the knowledge of like ultimately what their motivations are and what they're doing, it kind of bleeds into all of their actions because this is the first episode we really see them do something sinister in killing
Right.
Georgie, and we do see how, or this is the first time they're killing someone who isn't one of them. So I mean, it's
Right.
kind of cool
Right.
to kill one
Yeah.
of your own people, but like this is the first time they're killing a person, a
Right.
human. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Um, and we see that like they killed his family, but like why did they kill his family?
No idea. Not a clue.
Because they just like slaughter them. They didn't eat them. They're
As
not
far as I know.
experimenting on. I have like so many follow-ups.
Yeah, we had like the memories this side, which was an interesting torture method. Watching him, forcing him to watch through the eyes of the visitor who slaughtered his family. Okay, kind of a cool idea. That's cool. But like the idea is like he slaughtered them. He went into them and like it. I feel like the terror I felt, quote unquote terror I felt in like the original V when Steven took Daniel Bernstein and just said, "You will be served best as a dinner plate." I got more tension and fear out of that moment, even for a guy I didn't like, than this, which was just basically a normal everyday, not I mean, normal everyday murder. Yeah, I get it, but like normal everyday, like just normal killing. It just
And
didn't seem
also,
like
the
it
actor did a phenomenal job. Daniel did a phenomenal job in that moment of just screaming
yes,
for to not be eaten, right?
right.
Like in here, it's just everything is so muted. Georgie was my favorite character, and I just didn't even care at that point. I was just rolling my eyes. I'm like, this doesn't.
I will say I don't know if you mean that, but I mean what I'm saying. But I think he actually gave a good performance. Like when the scarabs, basically the influenced by the mummy
I
scarabs,
mean,
came out.
yeah, he gave a good performance, but it just to me it wasn't. I just didn't care at that point because the why of the
Mhm.
performance
Right.
just kind of overrode the emotional weight of it.
I can see that. For me, I was able to gleam onto the performance stuff like that. I didn't like. I in my head, I just knew that this is a character who lost his love, lost his family. And he was so defiant. He was saving in his mind. He was saving his friend, and he was doing the whole. I mean, the times when he stood up to them and he was like, "Give me a name." He started giving him his wife's name, his kids' names. I thought that was just very strong. I actually got emotionally touched by that, even if I didn't need to see. I didn't need. I all I needed to know was that the visitor had killed them for that to work performance wise for me. Story wise, I agree. It's kind of a shitty thing. I'd like to know more and figure out a better way to do that. But his performance actually did win me over. I did really like what he did, and I thought, unfortunately, with the bad side of it, I think it was a waste because he was one of the better performers we had, and we killed him off seven
Should have
episodes
killed
in.
Ryan and kept Georgie.
I fully agree. I would have lost Ryan. I've been just like, okay, that's fine. But you need Ryan because you need the visitor on their side. Theoretically, of course, they're not actually doing anything with him really. So that's the problem. There's nothing like they're using him. They're not using him to the best of their ability. If the Resistance was using him and his um, knowledge more than just getting a communicator marble, then I could see it. But without that, it's like, no, I'd rather actually just have all humans, because that was part of the thing about the original for me. I always liked the fact we had the fifth column was Martin. So if we just had Joshua on the ship and a human talking to Joshua, that relationship becomes more interesting and intriguing, because we don't like, they have to learn to trust each other. Whereas Ryan's there all the time. It doesn't seem to work out. You can't have Willie be the go-between. You have to have like Joshua be the go-between. You know what I'm saying? You have to have Martin be the go-between for it to work performance-wise, I think. So yeah, we lose Georgie. Great performance. I'm sad that he's gone, because he was one of my people I was leaning onto. I remember being very upset that he died the first time through. I was like, come on, why does he die? It felt like they were trying to, we lost a great character in an attempt to have an emotional stunt, for a cheap emotional stunt.
And it just didn't work for me.
Right.
I think it's also because I've seen a similar situation, but done way better. Like, for instance, if anyone is a fan of Legends of Tomorrow, the original captain of the ship, similar.
Yep. Yes.
Way better.
Very much so. Agreed. I just, sometimes comic books do this, shows do this, movies do this. They just decide that death of a character is the way to make a point or to get emotions about something. And unfortunately, you have to earn it to get there. And I think Georgie, I'll say it again, I think Georgie gave a hell of a performance and did his absolute best to make that ending emotional, that bit emotional. I appreciate what he tried to do, but I will agree with you that the writing didn't earn it, and that's the problem. But all right, so going back to the actual John May storyline, what I wanted to say, like, we kind of got off track a little bit. I do think, and I think Morris Chestnut actually gave a very subtle performance, and it could have been overdone. It could have been as overdone, like he could have been completely Spock, completely hardcore about it, and it could have been this like black and white kind of like thing between who he was now and who he was then. But I think he gave a subtle performance. I actually did see him, and I don't think I was looking too hard. I actually did see him kind of advance, and I do like the idea that he met Val at John May's wake or whatever it was. I thought that was a nice touch to bring them back into the fold. I do think I liked his reaction to young James's tears and everything else. I kind of liked seeing him developing those emotions. I think that was a good idea. Note that I think that it's a good idea within the canon we've developed, we've established. I still agree with you. I don't like the emotionless side of things, but that's where we are, so we have to go with that. So with that in mind, I think this is a kind of a cool thing that they did, and I like seeing that in that development. It actually made me care for Ryan a little bit for the first time all season, and all the whole time through. I care more about past Ryan than I do about present Ryan. And that's a problem as well, because at the end there we have Ryan come back to life, and that's what convinces you to finally come clean with Val. And guess what? It's too late. Because Val finds this secret stash and finds all these passports and guns and money in the secret safe that he had. And what a snooper she is! What a snooper she is! He breaks into the safe and everything else. But you know what?
It's in her home.
Yeah. Well, that's fair, but I mean, like, I would think any great relationship would have, like, I wouldn't, if I found a safe that my wife had, or it's almost one of my wife's, I would talk to my wife about, go, hey, I found this safe in there. What is that? Oh, I'm keeping stuff in there or something like that. I don't know. I would have been like, I wouldn't have forced it open. I would have called in the locksmith company to bust it open. Because it's kind of stupid. It's kind of, I wouldn't like, I wouldn't go into my wife's phone. I wouldn't go into my wife's computer. Like, I wouldn't, if she has something that's there and she wants to secret, I'm okay. I'll talk to her about it. I'll go to the safe.
Very male of you, PLD. Wow, let me think about that. Trusting a man, don't get it. No, I would
Okay.
never. I've like never looked at like someone's phone or anything. I have snuck a peek at someone's ID once. That was different. That's a whole different thing. But uh, in terms of like, if I'm in a long-term committed relationship and you have a safe, I don't think I would feel like we're in a loving, committed relationship if I don't know what's in the safe.
See,
Like,
I wouldn't think of it. See, I mean, maybe this is just me, but even not even trusting the thing. I'd be kind of like, maybe she just didn't tell me about it. Like, I
because
don't think
I'm
she would
sitting
be
there
keeping
thinking,
anything.
that's a firearm. I'm pregnant. I know how this ends. This is America. This is not looking good for me.
I guess I couldn't see. Okay, I find it safe in the home, and she didn't say anything about it. I'm not going to be calling the locksmith and to blast it open. I would confront her about it. I'd be like, "Hey, what's this? What's in here? What is this going on here?" That's the conversation I had. The
Oh,
going
I'm
the
doubling
extra.
down on what I just said.
Okay,
Confronting? No, no, no. That's just
okay,
not the way of the Homan. We passive
okay.
aggressive.
That's fair. That's fair. That's
We get
absolutely
all the dirt we need,
so you
and
can
then we
strike.
present, or we're gone.
Gotcha. In this case, gone, as it
Because
were.
safety first. I
Okay.
maintain that. Safety first. Leave.
I guess it also depends on where, like, I guess, like, for me, like, I'm in my marriage for now for like 20 years. So, like, it's also a lot different than maybe just a couple of years. Or, I mean, I guess it also depends on where you're in a relationship, right?
Also,
I guess
I
that also,
thought that she had kind of already figured out the whole weird thing with the pregnancy. Or at least that there was something weird about the pregnancy and that maybe he was hiding something. I
you
guess I just
may,
didn't know, like,
yeah,
what came about first. There was a scene with her, I'll be honest, I couldn't hear it, and I didn't wanna rewind. So, like,
that's fair.
she had something and she called him, I couldn't quite tell what
Right.
happened.
Right. Okay.
So, I was in the impression that she figured something out, she realized there was an issue, and then she started snooping.
Yeah. I mean, that does make sense too, I guess. And at the end of the day, I just feel it's poor writing for them. And they've always had kind of poor writing for them. I mean, they're poor writing
You know what?
overall.
Oddly
But
enough, I think that one wa was reasonable. That made sense to me. I'm like, this woman, this is a
interesting.
pregnant woman. She sees that her man isn't as trustworthy as she thought he was. Maybe he's a little dangerous. And she said, you know what? I'm gonna go.
Well, once the safe is open and she went in there, then I completely understand her going. Completely 100%. Okay, you find passports, you find a firearm that you never knew he had, and then you find your ultrasounds, which are showing something a lot different than a human baby at this point. Um, so yeah, at that point, phew, gone. I just was questioning the character for doing it before getting into the safe, but that's I guess is a nitpick, and I can live with it. At
Maybe
least
it's
it's
because
moving it
I'm
forward.
a millennial female. We've been taught to snoop our whole lives.
Okay. Hey, you know what? That's what it's great to have you on here. We have
Different
totally
generations, you know,
different
different.
generations, different perspectives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, um, okay. So that's the end of the Ryan character. I did like that part. Um, I didn't care about like them. Val leaving is finally like, okay, good. At least that is trying to move the story forward for them. At least finally.
Can I talk about something in terms of, like, what
Yeah.
happened when they, went to John May's house
Yes.
and meet
Absolutely.
his teenage son and this girl
Change.
he's with that I originally thought was supposed to be his sister, but then I was like, "Oh, no, no, that's his girlfriend maybe?"
Hmm, hmm.
Phased out, really was not paying attention, but okay, so there's a part where, Elizabeth is questioning her,
Okay. Okay.
and she
Yeah.
says I think she says she went to University of California or
Yeah. Yeah.
California
He's,
State,
yeah.
one of those, and she was trying to trip her up with the sports team. Oh my god, I was sitting there, I'm like, "Men wrote this script."
100%.
And also, they're bad at writing agents. You know how easy that would be? Listen,
100%.
I went to university in Georgia. Do I know the name of the super famous college, football team they have?
Mhm, yeah, no.
No. So if you were to I know it's not the Ravens, because where I live now, it's the Ravens. But if they were to say, the Ravens to try to trip me up, I'd be like, "Sure, yeah, I don't know, sports
Football.
ball
Right.
thing."
It's so
It's
much
not
easier
tripping anybody up, you can play it off. Like, the
it's
fact that
so
you
much
don't
easier. Yeah, for an agent to play it off that way, to play it off if you don't know something, then you don't commit to something. That's like a first thing an agent should do,
and it
and
just bothered me. That scene, that was one of the ones that made me stop and walk away. I'm like, oh.
I will tell you, it was the almost say that there's one scene beforehand which actually made me want to stop and walk away from it. And this was the part where I felt Jonathan Frakes did a horrible job. It was a horrible direction the way they directed it. They go to James. James answers the door, and she shows up there, and they couldn't have telegraphed that she was a bad guy anymore if they tried to. Like, it kinda came in like, she comes in, they had this, like, big reveal of her, this big, slow, like, looking her, and it just like, I'm like, Oh my god," like, they should not have committed to that so
The only
easily.
way it could have been more obvious, so I said I like soap operas. Dark Shadows, you can always tell a good guy from a bad guy because the bad guys have about an inch of eyeliner.
Right.
So as soon as someone comes on with eyeliner, you're like, ah, that's a bad
I
guy.
mean, I
Or like
thought
Star Trek,
she
she just walked up with a red shirt.
that's what she
R.I.P.
she basically walked up with a mustache as she started twirling. It was so off. I'm like, "Why would you do that way?" I don't mind her being a sleeper agent covering James. That's actually an okay idea because there's no John May is. They want to keep an eye on him for whatever reason.
Well, wait,
Whatever.
well, hang on. I got a thing with that. If the, does Anna does she know or not know where John May is?
I know. I think he was supposed to. We actually no, we don't know. She does know that he was there because Ryan was sent there to get him. Ryan was sent there with the other visitors to get him.
But if you were if we hadn't watched this episode, if we watched last episode,
Mhm.
does Anna know where John May is?
No, because he only they know she knows he's dead.
But I'm so confused.
At
I
first,
don't know. Am I
she
dumb? Like I'm
knows.
not getting it because I feel like it's weird that she's aware of where John May was. It seems like
Was,
it
right.
should be more of a mystery.
Because, I mean, because the flashback shows that Anna sent Ryan and company to get John May, so she knew
In
where he
this
was.
episode, and that didn't make sense to me. I mean, maybe I just
Okay.
didn't get it. I don't
Okay.
know.
I didn't have an issue with it. Maybe I overlooked something. Maybe I just
I overthink things.
and
'Cause I'm like,
sometimes I underthink them.
it seems like she wasn't inherently under the impression up until this episode, where they said that she did, that it seemed like all of a sudden to me. But it seemed like every episode prior, she didn't know she knew who John May was, but I never got the impression that she knew or suspected he was dead or in
Okay.
hiding.
I see what you're saying. I
Maybe
see
I
what you're
just got
saying.
confused.
You know what? I will say underlying that might add to the confusion, like, at the end where 'cause I remember being surprised the first time that when Ryan said that he killed John May, and I was like, "Okay." And that's why I, at the same time, went, "Did he really nobody did he really kill John May?" And that's why it would make sense, honestly, if we found out later on that he was not dead, because everything else would then make sense and fall into place. And I want somebody covering James May in case he comes back. I honestly think whatever the idea was, I think the whatever ends up happening in the series, as we know, they will change streams. Obviously, these writers will change streams whatever they feel like they need to. I feel like this episode sets up that John May lived. I think the idea was John May was the first to turn into his emotions. John May, we didn't see a body. Anna had sent a sleeper agent to cover James May, perhaps in case John May ever returned. And Ryan was becoming emotional. I think it's almost like we missed a scene. Like there was a scene that we're supposed to get in a couple episodes from now. I don't even know if we do or not. Maybe that we get an episode where we find out there's another flashback and we see the scene where Ryan and John May have a final confrontation. And Ryan does one of those like shoots above him and tells him to go and to get out of here. And Ryan was going to tell Anna, and that was Ryan's turn. That Ryan's first turn was he was going to become a fifth columnist and just tell Anna that he killed her and killed him, and John May was disintegrated or something like that. I don't know though. I feel like that was the decision, but they decided to cut that scene out.
And
And if they,
also,
yeah,
I'm a little confused about the timeline too. So, are we thinking that if we're looking at the age of the son,
right,
that couldn't have been more than 10 years ago?
right. Right.
And we're looking at, like, I'm not sure when Georgie's family was killed, but we only have the wiggle room of Ryan being a good guy, a fifth columnist for 10 years or so.
Right. Right. Right.
A-
I think
And
Jordy's
they
family
were
was killed in
doing
the last 5 years.
terrorism. I'm a little, uh,
It's a
I'm
very
a,
vague timeline. It's a
yeah.
very vague timeline at this point. I don't think the writers know either. I think they have a ballpark of this happened in the last 10 years. That's all you need to
Oh,
know.
you think they have a ballpark? You think they're keeping track?
um,
Honestly?
Probably not. I mean, they probably they mentioned 10 years for John May. I think this was them establish. I think this was them establishing a. All right, this happened within the last 10 years. It does establish the visitors have been here for even longer than 10 years. But I was actually surprised about that. Like 10 years, they've been here doing stuff. So like, why did they wait until now to like? What did they do for 10 years to prepare for Anna's arrival? Like what? I were they supposed to be like getting in places of power? And John May obviously wasn't in any place of power. He was in a cabin in the woods with some people. Like it's bad writing. It's just horrible writing. We should have a Bible where like we go. They were put into place 15 years ago to do this, but we don't know that. And I don't think the writers know that. I think the writers I think these writers are the worst of the writers in terms of they're just basically going, all right, we are going to make this up as we go along, and we will throw out things that we will explain them later. And then they just never get to explaining them later.
I'm literally just gonna Google right now. Why are the bees here? And see if I get any results. I don't think I will.
I will
I
try
just
to.
I just wanna fast forward. I just wanna know. I'm impatient. They're ridiculous. But you know what would be a much more interesting story?
What?
John May's story.
Yes.
Like that being the focus of the show would be significantly more interesting and also would actually carry a little bit of like thematic weight, especially when you look at its source material, which it is utterly deprived of any real story in comparison to.
Yeah, I know. I that is actually a great idea, and that might be why I liked the episode a little bit because I did like. I think in my head I watched the John May story, and I'm like, this is kind of a cool story. Like the first guy who rebels against the visitors and eventually ends up forming a fifth column long before they get to. This is kind of cool because then you could have like the visitors could like arrive in season 3 or 4 if that's the storyline. You know what I mean? Like he's there for a couple seasons, then there's the big climax that the visitors arrive and Anna shows up, and then he has to decide what to do then. Um, yeah, it's annoying. It's interesting idea. So John May would have been I like what your thoughts are. I think that could have been a very different way to tell. Of course, the problem with that is instant gratification. People need instant gratification. You can't have a show about visitors arriving and doing the whole thing like which is based on V doesn't have the motherships appear in the first episode because that's what they do. Um, it's unfortunate that they feel beholden to do that, especially because they are veering differently from the story. You had a chance to do things, but it's the stuff that's tough to do in a studio format. I think the studio probably wouldn't have allowed that idea. Not that they were considering doing it in the first place, and that's giving them way too much credit for that. Um, did you find anything?
Okay, so I got like the Google AI overview thing.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Okay, so in 2009 TV series V, the visitors arrive on Earth to promote peace and share new technology, but their intentions may be more sinister. Ooh, ah. Okay, so it says they have sleeper agents for decades on before their arrival to undermine society and gain access to government positions. Well, I mean, Alan Tudyk is the only one who did that.
Right.
So everyone else fucking failed. Way to go. You suck at your job. It does say about food source as the visitors' power grow, they round up resistors to use as food. Is that why they keep skinning their own kind?
Maybe.
And then oh wait, I missed a thing. Oh, agenda, hiding a malevolent agenda that involves twisting human nature and devotion. So they want more followers into their cults.
Okay. Here we go. Here's the funniest thing. You're gonna laugh. I think this one. I've looked it up myself. I found the V wiki which includes both V original and V 2009. And V 2009, under the visitors page, it actually says plans for Earth and humanity. It says the visitors have a mysterious plan for Earth and humanity, and here are the possible reasons of what the visitors need and want. Natural resources. Upon first contact, the visitors state that they need some mineral that is abundant on Earth but scarce in their homeworlds, but whether this is true or part of their facade is unknown. Colonization. The visitor homeworld may be overpopulated, which could be alleviated by relocating part of their population to Earth.
Okay, so hang on. The first two issues with that, we never see them doing anything with any plants like we do in the original. And for the overpopulation, this chick just had 10,000 eggs.
I agreed.
Continue.
Food and water. The visitors may have also come to Earth in search of a food supply, possibly because resources in their homeworld have becoming scarce. In the original series, it is confirmed that visitors intended to steal Earth's water. Yes, we know, because we knew that after the second episode. And finally, this one might be the spoiler-esque kind of thing, but I'll give it out there anyway at this point. If you're listening and you are watching this for the first time along with us, then maybe you should pause or skip ahead about 5 seconds. Interbreeding. The visitors are planning to interbreed with humans to accelerate the evolution of their species. As such, it is possible the visitors have done this with the native populations of other planets. This is supported by the fact that visitor DNA is far less complex than human DNA, as demonstrated by comparing alpha visitor DNA with Cerida malix, which we don't know yet. It also explains why Tyler and others have empty spaces in their DNA, because one of them is to breed with the future queen of the visitors.
That's what I've been thinking, but I'm sorry, you're building an entire show on
sex.
Okay, we have this really cool film franchise. It's called Alien. You're not. Oh my god. And the whole, like, I can see that's where Anna is trying to get Lisa and Tyler to go.
Right.
It's very weird. It's making me very uncomfortable. I don't like it. Can we talk about Lisa and Tyler?
We can. But before, yeah, we'll do that. Go ahead. Let's talk about Lisa and Tyler. The whole thing, well, at least, you know what? Hey, let's give them credit. We didn't draw out the mystery anymore. The mystery is, well, I can't even say that because there's still technically a mystery. But the answer of the mystery is that Tyler is not Joe's son. But then again, the way they never confirm it necessarily, Erica says that it is still his son and that the test must have been wrong. But that's why Joe left, because Joe doesn't trust her anymore because the test determined that they were not DNA related. Okay. So I think that this must have had, again, I don't remember anything in the future. So this must be a case of Joe is the father because A, Erica is the hero and they don't want her to have slept around, I think. And B, like, she is adamant that she didn't, and that Joe there, and they even bring up the idea that this test could be wrong. And with the drama of Tyler finding out and everything else, if it wasn't the case that Joe was the father, then they wouldn't have, at least writing, again, maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but I don't know why you would leave that open unless the idea was that it was a false test and he actually was the father, because the drama's there.
I know the answer, but yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. Like, it's clearly he in fact is the father, and there is another issue at hand.
Right.
But that undercuts it then. I don't know if they established that it is confirmed that she is his biological mother. Listen, I've seen switched at birth, okay? I know stuff happens. So I think that would be my follow-up, was like, did I bring the wrong baby home? I mean, clearly he's my kid now. I've grown attached to this one. So it's fine. But, like, maybe let's make sure before you go throwing out some accusations.
Right. Good point.
And I also feel like it's not necessarily if they want me to believe that isn't his dad, I feel like that was terrible casting, because I believe that actor really could be that other actor's son.
Yeah, I could see that too, absolutely. But again, I guess you don't want to make it like so obvious either. You don't want to have also have a guy who's like a redhead or I don't know, something like really out there, or like they were definitively not.
You'd be surprised how different a child could look from their parents and never question a thing.
I guess. But if you're gonna go that route with the storyline, it kind of feels like it's too on the nose, maybe.
I don't know. I'm watching Heartstopper. They got like some straight haired, one's a redhead, and I'm supposed to believe that those are Joe Locke's parents. You've seen those curly hairs? Come on, son. Those straight haired, boring couple didn't give birth to that.
Fair, good point. Yeah, okay. So the rest of it, I guess, is you get Lisa comes and Lisa
Also Lisa just like
overhears.
shows up, and her interactions with the dad are some of the most bizarre things and cringy things I've ever witnessed. Like, no parent is talking to their like teenage kids significant other like that.
Yeah, they just met, especially.
Yeah, it was so like, have the people who wrote this ever written dialogue?
Like, I get like obviously Joe is in a weird spot with Tyler. And he's not obviously in the picture really at this point, obviously. So maybe he's looking for some information, but it does feel very strange how he grills her so obviously. Like, of course she's going to tell him. She has no. There's you guys have not even established a relationship outside of your being a visitor. Like, you have not established a relationship at all. Like, she's going to tell him everything you're telling him because that's what she's caring about Tyler, not about you. That whole thing is kind of strange.
And also the fact that they would have the conversation regarding his paternity in front of her was weird.
Yeah. Well, you mean the confrontation that Tyler has?
Yeah.
That I bought because Tyler's very impulsive and shitty. And Joe, I think when you're a parent, sometimes when that happens, like, it's like, I don't even care about her right now. Like, obviously this really hurt my son, and my son's the kind of guy who's going to get on his motorcycle and leave. And so I gotta fix this now. Cause he wanted to tell, obviously he's been wanting to tell him for a while. That's what it felt like. So it's kind of like, well, this is out of the bag. We gotta solve this now before you do something stupid, which is what he does. He leaves and goes off. So I bought that aspect to it. I don't buy the aspect that Joe and Erica have a conversation on the phone in an open space area. Like, if I'm going to have that conversation with Erica, it's going to be like in my bedroom with the door closed, or it's going to be outside on a walk or in the car or something where there's no chance that anybody there is going to overhear it.
Yeah, because here's the thing about teenagers, they'll always hear what you don't want them to do.
Absolutely. And I know that very well. So that's why that made no sense to me. So as soon as she heard that, it was like, okay, well, it's obvious where this is going to go. She's going to say something and she's going to tell him because she needs to divide and conquer, as it were. That's her plan. Joe the actor did play Joe. He did a good job with the role, but it is not well written. Again, Elizabeth Mitchell, I think, did a good job in her performance when they had the big brouhaha at the end when Tyler goes and confronts her about it, and she gets kind of desperate. And I think that was a good performance again, but like, it just felt like Tyler's so frustrating right now. Like that. He's just not well written. I don't care about him as much as I'm supposed to, and that's part of the problem.
Oh yeah, they're centering a lot of stuff on him, and I'm just like, why? Wrong play. Put them eggs in the wrong basket.
You have a lot of great performers here. You have Morris Chestnut, who's a good performer. You had, Father Jack Landry's a good performer. Erica, good performer. Joe is a good performer. Georgie was a great performer. Miranda Baccarin's a good performer. And you're putting all of your eggs and like some of the more emotional like stakes to the story on this kid who plays Tyler, who I don't want to hate being negative like towards somebody's performances, but I'm not a big fan of their performance. I don't think they're a wonderful actor. And you already know I've already said the same thing about Laura Vandervoort. So you're putting all the stakes on those two.
This show isn't necessarily for teenagers. Girl, I'm in my 30s. I don't want to watch an angsty teen. I don't have that energy. Move past it.
That's fair. Exactly. And of course, if that's what we're leading towards interbreeding, it makes that the crux of the show, which is you never want the crux of the show to be Sean Donovan. That's not what you want it to be. Sean is a tool.
I Who?
Mike Donovan's son. Put some respect on the kid's name.
Unnamed child? I'm not familiar.
But that's exactly you're making my point for me. Like the kid it's not necessarily
I
even
mean,
know his
I
name.
think it's
He's
funny
the
you think
tool.
he's Sean Donovan when clearly he's Robin.
That's a good point. I mean, like I guess the Erica being the leader of the resistance, that's where the thing comes in, and they're using him. I guess they use it, and it is Robin as well. It's piece to Robin, or piece to Sean. But either way, you don't crux it on.
I think it says a lot about the people who are writing the show that when they watched the original, I'm assuming they watched the original, their takeaway was Robin. That's it. That's the show.
God. All right. There's one more. Do you have anything else to say about Tyler and Lisa's storyline? So one more storyline, then we have some catch up, and then we can move on till the next week's or next episode. The last storyline to talk about is Chad, and I will say I actually liked Chad's. I like the advancement that Chad's storyline made. I know it doesn't seem like it was a big advancement made. What I liked about it is this. Well, first of all, we get the throwback. We get the throwback to Chad watching the replay. It kind of threw me back to Donovan and Tony. But Chad confronting Anna, actually, I hated it at first because it felt the same old thing again. And at the point at the end, I was like, why are you're dumb to be confronting Anna on the mothership about this. You're stupid. But then I went, are you being stupid or are you being really ballsy? Because he gets the kind of upper hand. And I feel like both sides feel like they won the battle. Like Anna's like, I'm still controlling this guy. Yeah, she's looking at things he shouldn't look into, but I still have him and I can still use him. So I don't need to eliminate him yet. And Chad kind of made it look like he won the part of like, I'm showing you that I'm not completely on your side. And it felt like it almost felt like he was like trying to make the turn. They were trying to like make him the turn into the good guy potentially by standing up to Anna. But then they kind of pulled the rug underneath you, and he was like, we can help each other out. I do have this stuff I'm working on. I'm not stupid, but I can help you out. And so I like the idea that we don't know what Chad's entire motivation is at this point yet. I'm okay with that because he's playing the angle. He's playing both. I almost feel like he could be playing both sides. Like he's like, I want to get as much. Is he playing with her to get as much information? Is he already trying to sidle up to be a double agent? Like, I'm looking into this stuff. I want to get in as much information as I can. And what I do with it might surprise you. I'm either going to commit and become basically a traitor to the human race and just get as much as I can out of this. Or am I going to be on the other side of the good and be inside and getting all this information and maybe working against them on the outside? I think he's playing both sides. And I kind of felt that to be a little bit of an intriguing storyline for him for the first time since like the first or second episode.
I wish I had that perspective.
Okay, that's fair.
I did not read it that way.
Okay.
Given a partway through, as soon as he got in our space, I think my rage broke. But I just wish this show understood the term subtlety because I just didn't like that whole scene and confrontation. Okay. It completely didn't work for me. I think there's a way to be very manipulative and underhanded, and subtlety would have been, as a reporter, that's really where he should have been. And I was very disappointed by that directing choice.
Oh, interesting. Because I took it the other way because I felt like he had been like a little meek the entire time. Been kind of like he'd been questioning, like, oh, I want some, like Oliver, like I want some more. And even though he's questioning things, this time he made the sense. Well, I'm gonna take a swing like a boxer and punch you in the mouth once, just to kind of go. I am here. I am more than possibly you bargained for. I don't know, I kind of like that aspect of it, of his character. I like him trying to take a little bit of command there, taking a little bit of power back from Anna, even if it was still a dumb choice to do, especially on the mothership. If you have any doubts about her, you don't want to confront her on the mothership. So setting is wrong, but I kind of like the idea of him getting somewhere else with Anna instead of this being under her thumb completely. Like I liked him taking back some sense of ownership of the situation, even if it wasn't a whole lot. It just was something interesting. What he does with that will help me decide whether I like it or not, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but at this point, we're supposed to have these villainous aliens that are
Right.
a threat.
Mhm.
So his confrontation doesn't make them seem like a threat. It
Mm,
completely defangs them in my mind, or declaws them.
interesting, because I felt it worked for both
I'm just saying,
characters.
Diana would have killed a bitch.
True. But I kinda got I maybe it was me liking Miranda Baccarin's performance, but I kinda got the idea afterwards, just like it was kinda like, "Oh, I kinda like that he's showing a little bit of backbone here. I can really use him still." And,
It
like,
just
I'm
felt like
going to I am choosing to let him have his moment
it felt
now.
to me like a sixth grader's idea of what that scene should be.
Okay, that's
Just
fair.
didn't work.
It could very well be the fact that I liked it more because of the rest of the rest of the like, what we've been watching beforehand. That way, like, you get something like, give me a little taste of something. I like it more now than I probably would have if it was surrounded by more competent stuff, perhaps, potentially. I don't know, but I did like this one a little bit better than the other one, so we differ on opinion, and that's okay on that one. So we'll have to see where it goes next week and the week after and see how that develops. But I did feel for the first time more interested in Chad's storyline than, than I had been, which is weird because I will admit it's not like a whole lot changed. There's enough of a shift in the dynamics that made me go, "Okay, let's see what happens next now that he's kind of stepped up a little bit against her." So, I guess we're gonna find out. But that's all he had this week. There was really not much he didn't have. It was just kind of like he had the interview, did his thing, and then had the confrontation. And that was basically the
But
episode. We didn't
also,
have any.
sorry,
No, go
the
ahead.
whole reason for the confrontation was realizing, because the footage he's playing repeatedly is he's realizing that Anna is allowing people on board the ship for their
Being
human live
broken,
aboard program, whatever it was called,
right?
who are kind of like people who maybe have kind of bad luck in life, or like something kind of unfortunate happened. Specifically, we're concentrating on a woman who wasn't able to have children, so we're coming back to that whole having children thing. It's starting to get, honestly, it's starting to get a little creepy. If
Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie, it's getting
Okay, all right,
it's reading a little weird.
okay.
We need these men to calm down. It's starting to get uncomfortable.
It's funny,
Anyway,
and it's why I like having you on here, like I said, because you have these different perspectives. Like I said, I don't read that way, and I don't like it's and not because it's probably because I am a man, and I don't think of it that way. To be completely honest with you, I didn't. I looked at it more like
it just keeps coming up. Is all I'm saying.
right, which is why the interbreeding thing is the theory to go on at this point that
Yeah.
they were talking about. Because not only were they down their luck, but if it, like everybody that they were bringing aboard was broken in some way in terms of there was something physically they had some kind of issue with their DNA or with their body or something was going on, like the not being able to have children kind of thing was just one of those types of things. It is one they choose to talk about a lot now that I, in retrospect, think about it. When you mention it, I
Now
get
you're
it.
gonna clock it. I broke the glass. Now you're gonna
That
notice it.
that's
You
exactly
won't
what
be
happened,
able to
probably.
unnotice it.
But that makes sense in terms of if the interbreeding is the idea again. Unfortunately, I just don't think it's a good idea. But that's
I thought it was kind of like moving towards like maybe she wanted a cult, because cults and certain religions, I won't name any, do tend to specifically target people who were in or like going through a rough
crisis,
patch.
right?
Um, and which is very sinister, but like that's how they often bring people in, which is, kind of
Yeah.
crummy. But then I thought, like, okay, well, wait, if we had like a alien cult, that would be kind of interesting. I
That
don't
would
think
be
they're
fair.
gonna do anything with that, but it would have been kind of interesting. And then especially when you bring in the idea of the bliss, if that was something that like people could experience, maybe if they got the flu shot, that
Mm.
would be interesting. They want to expand the hive mind. I'm writing the faculty. It's fine. We'll move on. Never
It
mind.
was sounding a little familiar to me. I was like, "Where does this the
Never
faculty
mind.
that is." Okay,
We'll
fair
move
enough.
past it.
Yeah,
They
fair enough.
named their drug in that movie Scat. That is ridiculous. But there was less pregnancy, so that movie wins.
It's fair. That's
Speaking of
fair.
pregnancy, the last moment of the show.
I know you love it. That is your favorite part.
Fish eggs. The lizard
eggs.
had fish eggs.
Caviar.
Did lizard ladies have fish eggs? Is that
These
what
lizard
lizards
ladies
have?
do. I have no idea. I think snakes do.
Oh, okay, maybe.
I think snakes do. I could be wrong.
Now,
I'm
what
not-
kind of now are we thinking they're actually lizard people, or are they more gecko people? Are there lizard and gecko people? Kind of like Planet of the Apes, we have different,
different
various types.
types of species. Yeah, that's a good
Do some of them
question.
have stripes? Do some of them have spots? Are
Hmm.
any chameleons? Can they like change color?
They
I
could.
have a lot of questions. All of these things would have been interesting to explore.
Right, it would have been absolutely. We haven't explored any of them. We're 7 episodes in, and we have seen like Alan Tudyk's face. That's it. Like, and not in the full face. It was like a part of a face. They haven't even taken
And
off
the contact came out, which made sense. It made sense.
Right. Okay. I guess that'll, I have one. The only other thing I'll add is that there's 2 lines that kind of made me go, and one I kind of did like. We're going to get the human pain expert from the Tokyo ship. They needed a human pain expert from the
It's
Tokyo
Al
ship.
Leong from Lethal Weapon, and he's forgotten more about pain than you'll ever know.
I thought you were going to say Akio Long, the guy who played Mr. Chang.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
That's not. Fair enough. Human pain expert from Tokyo. That threw me off a little bit. I wasn't a big fan. Like, it was kind of a stupid way to say it. But whatever, I digress. The other quote that got me was James May's. Today's day and age, it would be like almost expected. I feel like the pop culture geek references were not made as much in 2009. So when James May threw out the getting Mork and Kal-El with the Kree Omni Wave projector, I did like that line. That kind of made me go, there's some inner geeks in there that are letting their inner geek freak flag fly a little bit. I'm okay with that. So I like that.
Yeah, I feel like Mork might be dated. I don't.
At that point, it's probably a little bit.
Yeah, I think everything else kind of works, but Mork's a bit.
Oh,
There are other things.
He's a big Robin Williams fan. He grew up at that time. Aladdin was his favorite movie. He went back and started going Robin Williams' career, and that brought him back to Mork and Mindy. So maybe I'm okay with it. The last thing I would say, Georgie getting the scours, like they actually use an SC word when they were basically taking the scarabs. I just thought that was like a little bit almost too out of the nose, but good work, Georgie, acting it. I believed your pain. So that's that. Anything else you have to say? Last bits and pieces of concern. Anything you want to throw shade at, or
just the show is just spinning its wheels. These people are not good writers. And what's funny? I did look up one of the writers. He's famous for having written 24 thrillers. He's a book writer. Are you fucking kidding me?
He's a book writer?
Will not read any of his books. Ridiculous. He's written a few shows, but really not many. The other guy, he's written some stuff for like a couple episodes of Highlander, a few episodes of like Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps. So it seems like he should be able to. I just don't understand. Maybe I don't have any words. It's embarrassing, really. It's embarrassing.
Fair enough.
These people, I bet they don't put this on their resume.
Probably not. I'm gonna guess not. Next episode that we're going to watch, the 8th episode in the first season. We only have, I believe, 5 episodes left in the first season. This one's entitled "We Can't Win," directed by David Barrett, and I'll give you a little bit of a idea of what's going to go on here. A little teaser. Chad and Anna are in Geneva for the UN summit, where Anna is going to present a gift of blue energy technology to the world. It is there the UN Secretary General reveals his belief that the V's aren't just visiting Earth, Erica learns the V task force investigating the fifth column. Valerie goes on the run, knowing something is different about her baby and doubting she can trust Ryan. Well, yeah, that's where we are. I remember the blue energy. I remember thinking, I'm going to feel the same way about this as I felt about the marble communicator.
Is it a Spencer's Gift electric ball?
We're going to find out. I'm not going to spoil anything for you.
Oh my God, is it a lava lamp? Please be a lava lamp.
All right, that's it. I can't do no more. We'll be back in 2 weeks for this. Lego, where can the folks find you?
You can find me at Lego Rants on YouTube or the Unhinged Binge on YouTube and Spotify. You can also find me on the Rob Fishbeck Network every other Thursday. And sometimes we're joined by others, talk about various random things. Next week, I believe we're talking about films that take place in the woods. Later this month, we're doing a Shyamalan ranking. Pretty excited for that.
Oh, Shyamalan ranking. Actually, that's a fun one, actually. I think he is overhated. I was going to say underrated, but I don't want to say underrated. I will say overhated, though. If that makes sense.
I love him probably more than most people. All right. I fucking love The Happening. That movie is great. I don't understand why I get so much hate. That movie's fun.
You and I have very different terms of hate, of great. Maybe different terms of great, I'll say that. Although I will also argue that I actually enjoy Shyamalan more than most as well. I cannot find anything good about Lady in the Water, though.
I love Lady in the Water. I love it. I think it came out like 2007.
That makes sense. Somewhere around there, 2006, 2007.
So I was in high school when it came out, and I gotta say, I really loved like the reframing of how you write a story in that. It's unique. I think it was really great. And the importance you place on certain characters when it could be the ones that you don't suspect. I think it's a lovely story in there.
Okay.
I stand by it.
That's fine. I actually will say that The Happening, I am not as big of a hater on The Happening as you are. Not as you, as other people are. So I will go with that. So, all right, I'll watch that with vested interest for sure. You can find me at PLD on Twitter. You can find me all over this channel. We got our Holy Snokes podcast, Star Wars podcast I do with Matty Gunner every other week. We do two mediocre white dudes on film, myself and PJ Campbell. We finished John Wick. We are entering A Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm excited about that. PJ is not as excited. It's kind of funny. We have this big thing for a while. We're doing this third because he was not the hugest Nightmare fan growing up. It's definitely his least favorite of the big three. Whereas Freddy was my first love back when I was younger. I think I fell in Nightmare on Elm Street first. I grew to love Halloween and Friday the 13th later on. But Freddy did something special.
Did you have the box set, the VHS box set?
I did.
I did too.
I love that. I love the box set. It was the first thing I think I saw it on cable TV first, and then I went back and and I watched them the actual movies later. I'm like, oh, this is so much better without the commercials, without the cuts.
Those were ones, rare ones that my mom actually owned. So whenever I stayed with her, those were like, I didn't have like a lot of movies to watch. So those were ones that I had.
I actually, this is funny enough, I can say it on this show, is that one of the reasons I got into it ideally was Robert Englund was in it. I was such a big fan of V, and I was like, oh, Willie plays this horror slasher, Freddy Krueger. I'm like, let's see it. I'm like, holy shit, what a different kind of performance this is.
I, of course, had the inverse thing where I was like, wait, that blonde guy is Robert Englund? No fucking way. That's what he looks like?
I will say that one of the funniest things I've ever read, Robert Englund actually has very, very fond memories of V. And he said later on, like years later, that his V fans were actually weirder and more intense than his Nightmare fans.
Yeah, because I feel like horror fans tend to be pretty normal, whereas like sci-fi fans tend to be very intense.
Yeah, I think horror fans are very chill. I think they just tend to be very chill. Considering it's weird, considering the topic of films we love, are very murderous and dark, and but horror fans generally tend to be nice people overall. I have found that to be true. So yeah, that's this whole thing. If you like this, like, subscribe, help us fight the almighty algorithm. I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/PLD Projects. You can help us that way too. People like Austin Goodell and Brendan Buckingham. And if you can't help me that way, I completely understand. Share, like, comment, all that good stuff. I always use your help in fighting that evil empire, the evil alien invasion of the algorithm. But that will do it for this week, folks. We will see you next time, which is 2 weeks from now, for the next episode of V that I am sure Lego is going to absolutely love. So
Bye.